We are conditioned to treat a good life like a shopping cart. The logic suggests that if you pile enough in, more money, exotic vacations, constant streams of information, eventually you hit the threshold for happiness. Consider the classic bucket list trip. You spend $3,000 and set your alarm for 4 a.m. just to catch the perfect sunrise over the Grand Canyon. But look at the physical reality of that moment. You are shivering in freezing winds, elbowing through a crowd of tourists, and feeling thoroughly miserable, all to secure a photograph. It forces a question. Why do we willingly endure active suffering right now, merely to purchase a hypothetical memory for later? The author Rolf Dobelli suggests the mathematics of happiness are backward. A good life doesn't come from stacking up peak experiences. It comes from systematically subtracting chronic daily miseries. Human psychology is remarkably resilient. Given enough time, we can adapt to devastating, permanent changes in our circumstances. Studies show that even after major life upheavals, like a severe physical injury or a painful divorce, people generally return to their baseline level of happiness within a few years. But there is a gap in that resilience. We cannot adapt to chronic, low-grade, unpredictable irritants. And the most consistent offender is the daily commute. The noise, the dense crowds, and the lost hours act as a psychological reset button. You never get used to it. The stress hits your brain fresh every single morning, blocking any chance of finding equilibrium. If you want an immediate, lasting upgrade to your daily satisfaction, you don't add a bigger house in the deep suburbs. You ruthlessly subtract the physical distance between your front door and your desk. Cognitive traps can be just as draining as physical ones. Behavioral economics uses the peak end rule to explain why we constantly sacrifice our present comfort. When evaluating a past event, the brain ignores the actual duration. Whether it lasted 2 days or an entire month is irrelevant. It only records 2 specific data points: the absolute highest emotional peak and the final concluding moment. This is why an incredible 2-week overseas vacation often lives on as a sour memory. If your final hours are spent in a claustrophobic middle seat for a turbulent 12-hour flight, that final misery dictates how you remember the entire trip. Because we intuitively know memories work this way, we try to game the system. We force ourselves into extreme situations, like scaling freezing summits or walking across continents, hoping to generate an epic memory. But actually living through the execution is agonizing. Treating your life as a painful deposit slip for a mental memory bank is a poor trade. You end up ruining the actual present moment for a future that only exists in your head. This strategy of subtraction applies to the clutter inside our heads as well. Modern life imposes a heavy burden on our attention, opinion overload. There is an exhausting societal expectation that you must maintain a highly informed, rigid stance on every complex global conflict, cultural trend, and breaking news story. But there is profound psychological relief in deliberate ignorance. You have the power to simply say, "I don't know." You can take a polarizing issue, toss it into a mental bucket labeled "too complicated," and walk away. This exact pressure feeds our habit of chronic worrying. We obsess over hypothetical futures, but most of our feared outcomes are entirely fictional. Mark Twain noted that he had suffered many catastrophes in his life, most of which never actually happened. A peaceful mind is achieved by starving it of unnecessary battles. Subtracting the obligation to have an opinion is as critical to your well-being as cutting out a terrible commute. Redefine the architecture of a good life as defensive. It isn't a museum built by cramming in artifacts and forced experiences. It is a fortress built by keeping the bad out. Eventually, we have to face the biological limit of the memory bank fallacy. When you reach the end of your life, those carefully curated memories are deleted anyway. If memory is fragile and destined to fade, then the value of an hour must come from the hour itself. A life composed of rich, high-quality present moments is a successful one, regardless of whether those moments are remembered tomorrow. Stop acting as an unpaid employee for your future self. Shorten the commute. Drop unneeded opinions. Skip the freezing sunrise. Protect your present tense.